A chilly wind swept through the bustling streets as a weary woman stepped into an upscale boutique, her tattered coat barely shielding her from the cold. She scanned the elegant displays, eyes filled with both longing and hesitation. The store's owner, a well-dressed man with a sharp gaze, took one look at her worn-out clothes and scoffed. "Excuse me, ma'am, I think you're in the wrong place," he said, crossing his arms. His tone was laced with judgment, his expression unreadable. The woman's fingers tightened around the few crumpled bills in her hand, but before she could speak, he continued. "We don't serve," he stopped himself, his lips curling into a smirk. "Customers like you." A hush fell over the shop as other patrons watched in silence. Some whispered under their breath, while others turned away, pretending not to notice. The woman's face remained calm, but something flickered in her eyes, something unshaken, something powerful. She took a step forward, and in that moment, the air in the room seemed to shift. Then, just as the owner was about to dismiss her completely, the front door swung open, and a well-dressed assistant rushed in, gasping for breath. His eyes darted between the woman and the owner, panic creeping into his voice. "Sir, do you even know who she is?" The color drained from the owner's face. The woman didn't move, didn't say a word. But the sudden fear in his eyes said it all. What happened next left everyone in the store speechless. Stay tuned to find out. The store fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the assistant's uneven breaths. The owner's smirk faltered, his confidence wavering for the first time since the woman had walked in. He studied her again, this time not just seeing the tattered coat or the weary lines on her face, but something deeper, something unsettling. The words stuck in his throat as he turned to his assistant, who was still struggling to catch his breath. "What do you mean? Who is she?" The assistant hesitated, looking between the woman and his boss, as if unsure whether to say it aloud. But the woman spoke before he could. "I was just leaving," she said softly, turning toward the door. There was no anger in her voice, no plea for fairness, just quiet dignity. And yet, something about her tone made the store owner's pulse quicken. "No, wait." He reached out before stopping himself. His fingers hovered in the air as if touching her would confirm his worst fear. Maybe there was a misunderstanding." The other customers, once mere spectators, now whispered louder. Someone pulled out a phone, recording the moment, sensing that something bigger was at play. The woman met the store owner's gaze, and for the first time, he saw the weight behind her eyes. "A misunderstanding?" she echoed, a wry smile touching her lips. She glanced at the assistant, who shifted uncomfortably. "I doubt that." The assistant took a shaky breath. "Sir, she's..." The front door burst open again, and this time, a man in a crisp suit strode in, his face pale with urgency. His eyes locked onto woman, and without hesitation, he rushed forward. "Ma'am, we've been looking everywhere for you." His voice held both relief and desperation. The store owner frowned. "What's going on?" The man barely acknowledged him, his focus solely on the woman. "Your driver has been waiting outside. We didn't expect you to." He glanced around the boutique, his brow furrowing. "Is everything all right?" The store owner's stomach twisted. "Driver?" The woman tilted her head, watching the store owner carefully. "Everything's fine," she said, though her tone carried an edge. She turned to the assistant. "Thank you for your concern." The assistant swallowed hard and nodded, stepping aside. The store owner, however, wasn't ready to let go of control. "Wait a second." His voice rose, and the tension in the room spiked. "You expect me to believe that you..." He motioned at her clothes, as if they were evidence of something shameful. "Have a driver?" The suited man's eyes darkened as he finally turned to the store owner. "Do you even know who you just insulted?" The store owner's breath caught. The woman sighed, reaching into her coat pocket. She pulled out a sleek black card, one that only a select few in world carried. The assistant's eyes widened in recognition. A customer in the corner gasped. "Is that..." The store owner barely heard the rest. His world tilted as the truth settled in. The woman wasn't just any customer. She wasn't poor, nor was she someone he could brush aside without consequence. She was someone powerful. Someone important. And he had just humiliated her in front of everyone. The woman studied him for a long moment before slipping the card back into her pocket. "I didn't come here for special treatment," she said. "I just wanted to shop. Like anyone else." Her words stung, though she hadn't raised her voice once. The weight of what he had done sank deeper as the customers around them whispered louder. But the real consequences of his actions? They were only just beginning. The weight of the moment hung in the air, pressing down on the store owner like a heavy fog. He had spent years crafting his reputation, curating an image of exclusivity and refinement. But now, in the span of a few minutes, everything had unraveled. The woman stood before him not as the poor, unworthy customer he had dismissed, but as someone far beyond his grasp. He didn't know her name, but that card, the hushed gasps, and the stunned faces around him told him enough. His throat tightened. I didn't realize." The woman raised a hand, silencing him with effortless grace. "You didn't care to realize." The store was completely still. The other customers, who had once watched with quiet curiosity, now stared with something closer to judgment. The assistant fidgeted at the counter, avoiding his boss's gaze. The suited man who had entered with urgency stood beside the woman like a silent force, his disapproval radiating through the room. The store owner swallowed hard. His mind raced for a way out, a way to undo what had been done. Perhaps we got off on the wrong foot," he said, forcing a chuckle that landed flat. "Why don't we start over?" "I'd be happy to." The woman turned, already heading for the door. The suited man followed without hesitation. The store owner's hands clenched at his sides. "Wait," he blurted out, voice tinged with desperation. "Please, let's talk. I didn't mean to offend you." She paused, but only for a second. Without looking back, she replied, "You already did." And then, she was gone. The door shut behind her, leaving a vacuum of silence in her wake. The store owner let out a shaky breath, but the relief was short-lived. A new tension settled in as he noticed the customers still watching him, their expressions unreadable but heavy with quiet judgment. Someone murmured, "That's going viral for sure." His stomach turned. His gaze darted to the woman who had recorded the encounter on her phone. She gave him a look, one of pity, perhaps, but also finality before slipping out the door as well. The store owner spun toward his assistant. "Do you know who she is?" he demanded, his voice sharp, cracking at the edges. The assistant hesitated before nodding. I think so," he admitted. "And if I'm right, then you just made a huge mistake." A chill ran down the owner's spine. For the rest of the day, the store felt different. The air was thick with unspoken words, and though customers still came and went, the energy had shifted. A few whispered as they browsed. Some left without purchasing anything at all. By nightfall, the weight of the encounter pressed down on him like an unbearable force. He checked his phone compulsively, scrolling through social media, searching for any sign that the moment had slipped away unnoticed. But there it was, video clips, blurry yet damning, shared again and again. The comments flooded in. Typical. Some people only respect money when they can see it. Imagine turning away someone like that. He just ruined his own business. Kindness costs nothing, but now? He's going to pay a heavy price. He swallowed hard. The backlash had begun. By the next morning, things had only worsened. Calls came in, some from loyal customers demanding answers, others from media outlets hungry for a statement. His email inbox was flooded with messages, some from angry patrons vowing never to return, others from journalists requesting interviews. And then, the real blow came. A notification popped up, an article from a major news outlet. Luxury boutique owner refuses to serve woman, regrets it immediately. His breath hitched as he read the first few lines. The woman's identity had been revealed. She wasn't just a wealthy shopper, she was a philanthropist, a business mogul, a figure known for her quiet but immense influence. Someone who had built her fortune from the ground up, someone who had dedicated her life to helping others. And he had treated her like she was nothing. His phone rang, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a number he recognized. One he had been dreading. The owner of the entire retail chain. With trembling fingers, he answered. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. "I assume you've seen the headlines." He swallowed. "It's not as bad as it seems," he tried, but even he didn't believe it. A long pause. Then, "Fix it." The line went dead. "Fix it? But how?" Panic clawed at his chest as he paced the empty store. The damage was done. No apology could erase what had already happened. He had built his success on exclusivity, on the idea that only certain people belonged in his world. And now, the world was watching. Days passed, and the fallout only grew worse. Protests formed outside his store, signs held high with words like respect over riches and dignity for all. Some of his wealthiest customers, people he had catered to personally, began to distance themselves. But the final blow came when an official letter arrived. His partnership with major designers? Terminated. His place in the exclusive business circle? Revoked. His store? At risk of closing for good. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. And then, the unexpected happened. A press conference was announced. Not by him. By her. The woman he had turned away. The store owner sat frozen, watching the live stream from his office. She stood before a sea of reporters, calm, collected. When the questions came, she answered with grace. "I never wanted this to become a scandal," she admitted. "But moments like these reveal something important about the world we live in." A reporter leaned forward. "What would you say to the store owner now?" She hesitated just for a second. Then, she met the camera with a steady gaze. "I tell him that true wealth isn't measured by money or status, but by how we treat people," she said. "And that it's never too late to change." The words struck him like a hammer. It's never too late to change. For the first time, the store owner realized something. His downfall hadn't come from turning away a wealthy woman. It had come from turning away a person. A week later, the boutique's doors remained closed. But something had shifted. A handwritten sign now hung in the window. Closed for renovation inside and out. And beneath it, in smaller letters. A new beginning coming soon. Because sometimes, the biggest lessons come from the smallest moments. And sometimes, the hardest falls lead to the most unexpected transformations.